Yep, looks like we're up. All right, so everybody, we do have joining us Phil Spare, the district's general counsel, and the report the section of the external monitoring report that we're working on right now is 2.6.1, which is associated with the superintendent's contract. As a reminder, the interpretation that we are making sure that we've answered correctly is in the green section of our working doc. And that interpretation, we're looking at that if the interpretation says change his or her compensation and benefits, except as his or her benefits are consistent with a package for all other employees, to mean that the Board of Education determines the annual compensation and benefits package for the superintendent, the financial enhancements in addition to base salary do not exceed those received by other employees except as outlined in the superintendent's employment contract executed by the Board of Education. So when we look at this and we want to review this, we want to make sure that we're answering the questions and the concerns that are in our interpretation. All right, I'm going to put on mute, and I believe Phil's here for everyone that's got questions.
If there's any questions, I can take them right now, or I can provide a little bit of background. The little bit of background is that the current contract that the superintendent is working under was approved on March 17th, 2021 by the Board of Education. There's been no changes to the contract since then. I guess July 1 of this year, 2022, the superintendent received an increase in the same percentage as other administrators, which I believe was in the 4% range. I also checked with our payroll department and asked them if there's been any other changes to the superintendent contract since March 17, 2021, and the answer was no. So I'll answer any questions you may have.
Kelly, did you want to ask yours?
Actually, I think, Phil, you pretty much answered it, but basically the contract isn't changing, right? His current structure goes through 2024, and there's really no changes. And then the 4%, was that labeled as a COLA adjustment? Because that's stipulated in the contract, but no other increases unless it was across the board.
I would say that is a COLA-like increase that was across the board for all district administrative employees. The superintendent was not singled out and treated differently.
Okay.
And yes, all administrative employees, our increases are labeled as a cost of living adjustment or a COLA, because we do not, like our other negotiated groups, we do not as administrators have steps or lanes, and which is why all of ours are considered a cost of living adjustment.
Okay, excellent.
Are any requests anticipated? I mean, does the superintendent have the opportunity, or does he ever exercise the option to request changes, or how is that negotiated?
I've experienced, I think, 2 times during my 8-year tenure here where the superintendent has asked for changes to his contract. And when that occurs, they are taken to the Board of Education and a public vote is held. One example I can think of was several years ago. At the time, the contract required that the superintendent reside within the school district, and the superintendent wanted to move a couple of miles outside of the district, and he approached the board. The board granted that request, and a public vote was held. So that's the way it happens when it needs to happen, but I have not heard any requests for changes from the superintendent since this March 17, 2021 contract went into effect.
Thank you. Yes, I recall that as well, that he did ask to have the residency requirements changed. So yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Phil, one last question. When will the negotiations for the next one start? Because it's 2024. So just curious when the negotiations will start there.
There's not a set schedule for that. But based on my past experience with this school district and others, it's not uncommon for that to start, I would say, somewhere between 6 months and a year before the contract expires. Because if a superintendent wants to find another position or needs to find another position, it's not something you get a new job in 2 weeks, so that would take some advanced planning. So I would expect that there could be negotiations for that sometime in 2023, 2024.
Excellent. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Phil? Okay.
All right.
I
Thank you,
think we're
FAC.
good.
Keep
Thanks
up
so
the good
much.
work. All right, so long.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay. I'm looking at so we had a little bit of work we were going to do on 2.6.1. But Sonia, was there anything else on the agenda besides doing our write-in and on our work on this, on the document?
No, that should be it. So we can stop recording.
Oh, wait, hold on. I don't want to
Okay.
do that quite yet. So, one more thing that was not on the original agenda and was a conversation that we had, in a leadership meeting yesterday. We would like to make sure, I am super appreciative of everybody that is on this committee, and you have done some amazing work so far over the years. And it would be great if you have got a neighbor, a friend, someone that you could talk to and say, we would love for you to join us and be part of the Finance and Audit Committee. So you can give them your personal experience on this, the information you've learned, especially as we are going into potentially, we're doing our long-range planning work and our blueprint conversations. If we're going to go out and issue debt, the conversations have been, going on, and we want to make sure that we have a robust community committee to talk about, not that we're not already robust, but that more folks and get more folks involved so that we can make sure that we've got the best questions and we're answering all of your questions and being transparent. And then you're able to go back out, to your schools and your neighbors and things like that. And when people have questions, you're also that voice for us. So if before next meeting, if you know anybody that you could get interested in, we would love to have, we do have capacity on the committee as far as with the bylaws go, and we'd love to have more folks. Thanks, Kathy. That's great. Okay, now at this point, I believe we can go ahead. We can turn off the streaming for the remainder of the meeting. And all we're going to do is, I think what you decided at the last meeting was that trying to do your questions and then your write-up of your language that was going to be in the report. If you do all of those at the very last meeting, instead of trying to do them at the end of this individual one, it just gets a little bit more difficult.